Hello and welcome to this webinar titled The Future of Pharmaceutical Manufacturing, Flexibility and Sustainability Through Small Footprint Modular Equipment Trains, hosted by Biopharma Asia Magazine and presented by Daniel O. Blackwood, Jeffrey Moriarty and Dennis Powers. My name is Sri Patel and I will be the moderator. Before we begin, I would just like to remind our viewers that this event will be hosting a live question and answer session at the end of the presentation. You can submit a question at any time throughout the presentation via the Questions tab, located at the bottom of your screen, and we will go through these at the end of the presentation. Now please allow me to introduce you to our presenters. Daniel Blackwood is currently a Research Fellow in the Technology and Innovation Group of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Small Molecule at Pfizer, based in Groton, Connecticut. Currently, he is the Technical Program Lead for Pfizer's Portable Continuous Miniature and Modular Development and Manufacturing Initiative for Oral Solid Dosage. In this role, Daniel is leading the cross-functional team of engineers and scientists in the design, fabrication and installation commissioning activities for Pcmn. In addition, he is a subject matter expert in drug product continuous processing technologies, including gravimetric feeders, inline powder mixers, and tablet compression equipment. Daniel received his BS in Mechanical Engineering from Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, and his MS in Industrial Engineering from Columbia University in New York City. Jeffrey Moriarty is Director in the Pharmaceutical Sciences Small Molecule Division at Pfizer Incorporated in Groton, Connecticut. He has 13 years of experience working in drug product development and currently leads the Quality Risk Management Program for Co-Development Drug Product Small Molecule Programs. In this role, Jeffrey supports knowledge management and quality by design activities and partners with project teams to create the process understanding necessary to develop well-designed control strategies. He is also a subject matter expert in continuous manufacturing, utilizing Pfizer's Pcmn oral solid dosage development and manufacturing system. Jeffrey has a BS and MS in chemical engineering from Villanova University. Dennis Powers is the Director of Sales Engineering for GCON Manufacturing since 2013 and has over 20 years experience in working in the biopharmaceutical industry on both the manufacturing and supply side of the business. He has held positions in various technology and manufacturing functions, including engineering, quality and validation, project management, and operations. Through his career, Dennis has worked closely with numerous companies in the pharma and biopharma industry to provide process and facility solutions to meet their specific needs. He is an active member of the PDA and ISPE. Dennis received his BS in Mechanical Engineering at the University of Delaware and his MS in Management from NYU Polytechnic University. I would now like to invite our first presenters, Daniel Blackwood and Jeffrey Moriarty, to join our webinar. Welcome, Daniel and Jeffrey.
Okay, thank you, Sri. So this is Daniel Blackwood speaking. On behalf of my colleague, Jeff Moriarty, it's our privilege to spend the next hour of time with you talking about some ideas related to the future of pharmaceutical manufacturing. Our talk this morning is outlined in front of you, and it follows the paper that was introduced in the May-June issue of Biopharma Asia Magazine, available online. We've also supplemented that content with some additional learnings that we have encountered as we have brought the Pfizer Pcmn Portable Continuous Miniature and Modular System to life, as well as some recent thinking. I'll cover the first part of this presentation and then turn the presentation over to Jeff, who will handle the second half of the presentation. As we think about the future, maybe a starting point is our past. And our past is dominated by large batch infrastructure. Many of these facilities and processing equipment were designed in the blockbuster day of pharmaceutical manufacture, where billions of tablets were produced on an annual basis to supply high-volume, broadly distributed medicines. As we start to think about the future tomorrow, we recognize that changes in the environment, particularly targeted biology and precision medicine are resulting in smaller patient populations and corresponding volumes of dosage form manufacture that need to be created for our global marketplace. And whereas we had large systems of batch processing consisting of multiple unit operations with lots of inventory in between each of the unit operation steps, requiring weeks or months to progress powder through to dosage form manufacture. As we look to tomorrow, we can see systems where our raw materials can be converted into the dosage form in a matter of minutes using small footprint modular pieces of equipment. Further, as we take a look at the landscape beyond our pharmaceutical industry, we recognize that we're in a period of dynamic change. Technology elements such as big data, robotics are now present in industries around us. Additive manufacturing, green engineering, green technology initiatives, and some regulatory pathways, including breakthrough therapy designations, that are opening the door to faster means of bringing medicines to market. Together, these factors result in a future of pharmaceutical manufacturing, one that's rooted in sustainability. How can we introduce new technologies into our development and manufacturing paradigms that give us access to elements like operational precision and cost efficiency, but yet remain adaptable for future technology changes that will unfold and present themselves to industry in the coming years? Many companies are currently exploring initial steps in this area, particularly as they are seeking to unseat historical batch manufacturing processes and introduce continuous manufacturing processes in their place. As they absorb this change, they can gain efficiencies such as variable lot size to create a demand-based inventory supply system. They can use the same equipment to both develop and manufacture clinical supplies, and then use that same or identical piece of equipment to deliver their commercial supplies. But more to the point, the primary benefit that has emerged through the transition to continuous manufacturing is the intensification of the process. Powder blending systems that previously were thousands of liters in size are now completed in continuous units that are liters in size. These units that previously held thousands of kilos of material, hundreds or thousands of kilos of material, now hold hundreds of grams of material in their system. And through this process intensification, our equipment has become miniaturized. Through miniaturization, we can see small footprint pieces of equipment, which in turn require smaller facility infrastructure to support them. These smaller overall footprints reduce the energy consumption. And through miniaturization, opportunities around modularity emerge. With modularity, the same equipment platform can be modularly adapted to achieve multiple configurations. We can use technologies to encourage rapid process or changeover, or product changeover. And through modularity, we can accept tomorrow's next generation technology without disruptively changing today's manufacturing systems. And lastly, out of modularity comes portability. Through skid-mounted equipment, we can put these elements into autonomous pods. These pods can be rapidly deployed to bring medicines to marketplace globally. And if the business climate changes or we can seek to redeploy these pods to other locations in the global supply chain. Further, these combinations of pods open up opportunities for multi-company pod farms. And together, these four elements seek to transform how we might develop, manufacture, and distribute medicines to marketplaces. A number of companies are pursuing various elements of those four facets. Vertex has brought a medicine to market a few years ago. Janssen, and through combinations with Rutgers CSOPs, has recently also brought a medicine to market with continuous processing. MIT and Novartis have collaborated with their RedMine program. MIT is also working on elements around pharmacy on demand. And other companies are pursuing modular facility designs, such as the GE Healthcare and the Pfizer Pcmn program. Many of these elements are proportionate to, their sizing is proportionate to the output doses per year. The schematic represents roughly where these elements lie on this footprint versus doses per year output. We believe in the future further miniaturization of this technology will emerge, further reducing the facility footprint required to house these processing equipment. In the upper left corner, we see desirable operating space as with small footprint facilities and high volume systems, which allow companies to increase their throughput through their factories, gain efficiencies through reduced operational costs and lower capital costs. In the lower left corner is also a viable operating space with localization of manufacturing, volumes proportionate to personalized medicine, or perhaps crisis response. Through miniaturization, we can see roughly the scale of change from a typical blending unit operation. On the right is a typical bin blender associated with batch processing. On the left is an inline vertical mixer associated with a continuous process. And we can see that we have a multiple orders of magnitude reduction in scale of size. This miniaturization offers new opportunities where we can couple high-value probes, such as a near-infrared probe, at the discharge of the mixer. Here, this probe can look with high frequency at the concentration of the components leaving this mixer on a continuous basis. It allows us to gain much greater insight to the blending operation than we had previously with our batch blending processes. In terms of modularity, some companies are pursuing multi-level facility structures. Here, an interdependence on the process equipment is present, where the building structure is used to support the processing equipment. This creates a dependency on the building construction timelines and the corresponding ability to install equipment within those facilities. And these systems remain moderately adaptable to future technology changes, assuming no major changes required to the floor elevation designs. Other companies are pursuing single-level facility structures with an independence between process equipment and facility design. Typically, these structures have open floor plans and equipment that is skid-mounted. Pursuing this route allows some independence of the building construction while the processing equipment is being manufactured. The building can come on separately, and there's no dependencies on the timelines. We feel this kind of design might be a bit more readily adaptable to future technology advances. This schematic represents the Pcmn program and 5 of the 6 pods that are part of this design. Here, a skid-mounted piece of equipment is centered around the infrastructure of the 5 pods. As they were installed together and closed to create an integrated facility, which will be shown in some subsequent slides, we can think of opportunities where tomorrow's technology might emerge. Here, we can open these pods back up, take out the skid-mounted processing equipment, and insert tomorrow's technology in its place. If the size and scope of that technology is reduced, we may choose to further modify the pod design and go to a single-level system, where we can now configure our facility in a much more nimble fashion. The next series of images were captured off of a video, which is provided in the link and will be available in the slides. Our processing equipment, which was skid mounted, was inserted into the pods that were rolled into our facility using air bearings shown here. Many of the equipment design was already present in the pod, which minimized the construction timeline once these pods arrived to our facility. Here a pod is being floated in and pushed into place by some workers. Here our skid-mounted equipment is being brought in. This is a tablet press. And here it's being inserted into its nesting location. And finally, the facility was able to be closed up. In the course of approximately a week, this warehouse building was transformed into a facility containing our GMP pods and our processing equipment. And within the course of six weeks following equipment arrival, we were able to turn on the power to this piece of equipment. And here it is in its state as it stands today. Some other elements of modularity include an opportunity to perhaps exchange pieces of equipment into and out of the system. Here an exchangeable turret is being inserted into a tablet press to increase the cycle time of the cleaning process. Perhaps in the future an encapsulator could be swapped out to replace the tablet press to allow for a direct encapsulation process to emerge with the same equipment platform. That vision sometimes is replaced by some realities of the systems. Many times the tablet press and encapsulators may not nest very well in the same physical location, and the powder flow or the access to the piece of equipment may create troublesome design challenges to consider. And so in addition, other realities like integrating multiple equipment vendors' homegrown software to operate as an integrated system. Many of these pieces of equipment are legacy batch equipment that have been, with minor adoptions, have been changed to customize towards a continuous process. Other ideas of modularity, in this case on the left, the processing equipment is tightly integrated to create a nimble, small footprint design. Alternatively, one might consider a modular system to have a modularly configurable space. Here in the dashed region, we can insert an inline mixer to connect our feeders to our tablet press. Another process can insert a mill in this line to first mill the materials before mixing them. Or alternatively, these might be able to be dry granulated before introducing them into the tablet press. And so as a result, there's a tension that emerges between highly integrated design approaches and highly modular or configurable design approaches. Perhaps the one on the left offers optimal approaches for material flow and equipment and facility size and scale, whereas the one on the right offers optimal approaches in terms of flexibility and usability. I'll turn it over to Jeff Moriarty, who will take you through the remaining slides of this presentation.
All right, so hello everyone. So Dan talked a lot about the pod design and equipment design, so I'm going to talk about how companies might utilize the equipment design and continuous processing to develop drugs. So, and talk about some emerging opportunities for optimizing platform technologies and enhancing process robustness when making drug products. So I want to use a kind of a vision statement. So imagine we had a continuous direct compression manufacturing line like we have in Pcmn. So what if that same platform technology was used to make first a development technical batch, so you're gaining information about how the product performs on the equipment, as well as some information about operating space for certain process parameters. Maybe you're developing an NIR model. So then you use that same equipment to then make clinical batches or a run of clinical batches. So you're further refining those models and increasing your process understanding. And then you proceed to make registration stability batches. Again, refining the models and gaining further process understanding. You proceed to make your validation batches, and then finally you're in the launch and commercial batch life cycle. So along the way, you're using the exact same equipment, and you're refining and gaining expertise every time you run the equipment. So traditionally, a lot of companies like Pfizer will to go through and support clinical trials and then get ready for commercial launch. We'll use a batch process, and we'll have a small scale clinical facility where we might use either pilot scale or even smaller scale equipment to make a batch to support very early clinical trials, maybe with batch sizes less than 10 kilos. And then we'll do a technical transfer to a larger facility with larger equipment to support larger phase 3 clinical trials. And then finally, if everything goes well, we'll then transfer up to a commercial facility with even larger equipment to make clinical batches. So at each step along the way, you're doing a geometric scale-up of equipment. You might be changing, the general principles of how the different pieces of equipment operate, or you might be changing vendors or brands as you go to the different scales. So what happens as you do experiments along the way, you might develop engineering models, perhaps some PAT, and maybe advanced process control. Unfortunately, you have to redo this at each of these scales. So it's a diluted effort because of the additional time, money, resources, API that's required to do that. So the vision with continuous processing is to support early clinical trials. You'll run for a certain amount of time and make enough tablets or drug product to support a clinical batch. And then if you proceed further into clinical trials and get ready for commercial supply, you're just running the equipment longer. So it's the exact same equipment at each step. It's just you're running it for a longer amount of time. So there's no geometric scale up of equipment. You're just running it longer. So along the way, all of the experiments, models you're developing, PAT, advanced process control, accrue, and it's concentrated. So this reduces time, money, and resources. Another illustration to show this is how we've developed an integrated approach to this platform technology. So it's a way to transform the development to manufacture paradigm. So within our Pcmn and our continuous processing equipment, we've married the equipment design, the PAT, the engineering models, and the advanced process control. And so that's harmonized. And so where all these overlap is our knowledge engine. So when you take, especially with a large pharmaceutical company, the material science formulation and development best practices and run it through the system, we get a very robust commercial manufacturer. So I want to propose a few opportunities for supply chain flexibility when you're using the continuous processing and modular pod concept. So imagine you have a series of equipment skids that you can be placed in a pod-based facility. So it could be making a drug substance. So maybe the first skid is some sort of synthesis for your synthetic manufacturing, and then maybe a crystallization or a drying step to make a drug substance, or it could be a small molecule drug product where you're mixing the powder in one skid and tableting or capsuling in the other, or making a suspension and encapsulating it, or it could be something in the large molecule biospace. So these equipment skids can be packed together and placed into one pod. That pod can be deployed on the back of a tractor trailer and deployed to a facility, any manufacturing warehouse gray space, and set up for manufacturing. So here we go. We have this facility in one pod, but you can easily have several pods lined up, either performing different steps, or each one dedicated to a specific product or a drug product intermediate. Now let me unpack that idea a little bit more. So you have this facility with several pods. You can have warehouse and laboratory support, a GMP space to support the manufacturing activities in the pod. You can have a space for administration, and this is if this all belongs to one company. One of the potential ideas is to have a shared facility, either through a joint venture, CDMO, or third party, where a certain series of the pods belong to pharma company A, certain pods belong to pharma company B, and then you could potentially share equipment where there's a need for a platform test. And then going further, pharma company A decides to deploy their pods to a different facility. Another company could easily move their equipment in and set up in a very short amount of time, and you already have the infrastructure in place and the administration and the GMP lab support to get up and running very quickly. So we talked about equipment, we talked about one pod, we talked about a series of pods in a facility. So now let's talk about facilities in a worldwide global space. Okay, so here we have a map of the globe, and we could have facilities placed at different places in the world. So we can have a central hub, let's say in North America, and then regional development and manufacturing locations elsewhere around the globe. So we can develop drugs in one spot and transfer those processes to facilities throughout the world. So this allows for equipment and expertise continuity. Okay, so we can transfer products to different locations. And it'll be very easy because it's replicated and the equipment is the same. And then from there, those facilities can manufacture the product and distribute them from the point of manufacture. And over time, as those receiving sites gain more experience, they can eventually turn into development sites. And there could be a feedback loop where then products could be developed that once was a manufacturing site and become a development site, and it could be fed back to different sites. What this also allows is for, in the case of emerging markets or localization that's needed, a facility could be rapidly deployed in a emerging market for manufacture, and product can be distributed from there. So in conclusion, the emergence of continuous manufacturing technologies is introducing a cascade of changes in how pharma solid oral dosages are developed, manufactured, and supplied to the marketplace. So there's already some very real-world examples of this, and it's rapidly gaining traction within the pharma industry, especially with personalized medicines, orphan diseases, manufacturing localization, crisis response, are also further pushing further reshaping of process equipment and facility landscape. So within this environment and this idea, we expect iterative technology advances with increasingly shorter technology cycle times. We expect equipment and facility innovations to be in the modularity, miniaturization, and portability world. And then finally, we see a lot of benefit in continuing accelerated pre-competitive collaborations within the industry and with equipment and facility suppliers and academics. So that concludes the first half of the presentation, and I'll turn it over to Dennis.
Actually, just before Jenny speaks, I'd just like to quickly thank Daniel and Jeffrey for that. And just as a reminder to our listeners, if you have any questions for Daniel, Jeffrey, or Dennis, then please click on the questions tab at the bottom of the screen and send them through to us. We will be asking these at the end of the presentation. So I'd now like to invite the speaker for the second half of this presentation, Dennis Powers, to present an industry perspective titled PODS, helping to define the future of pharmaceutical manufacturing through modular and portable cleanroom facility designs. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you for the introduction, Sri. And thank you for everyone taking your time today to join our webinar. This portion of the webinar will look at our perspective of the business landscape and the needs and drivers that we've all been observing in the industry today. We'll evaluate the benefits of prefabricated turnkey facilities and why we believe that they'll become more prevalent within the industry. And lastly, I'll be providing an additional overview of the Pcmn Consortium and project, which is a great example of a facility of the future platform that's designed to meet the evolving needs of industry. I'll begin now by providing just a brief introduction to GCON manufacturing. So as some of you may already know, GCON manufacturing was started based on the development and launch of its innovative autonomous cleanroom pod technology. And by autonomous, we mean a prefabricated modular cleanroom, which has integrated HVAC, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and controls, and which only require electrical power and chilled water to operate once installed within a host facility. Airlocks for personnel and material can be integrated into the pod structure based on the environmental and containment requirements for a specific process. And depending on the client's project requirements, the scope for a GCON project can range anywhere from a single 400 square foot pod up to a 20,000 square foot or larger pod facility. The pods are very flexible in their design, and they can be installed either within an existing facility or new construction. Containment and segregation of unit operations for different processes is easily attained based on the pod's autonomous design, which really do make them ideal for multi-product facilities as well as for containment of potent or toxic materials and products. The pod design also allows for efficient scale-out of cleanroom area by adding additional pods to a facility as required with minimal impact to the existing operations. Pods can be designed and built to integrate any type of process and support equipment from a number of suppliers to support a broad range of manufacturing processes. And the pods incorporate a robust all-aluminum structure which allows them to be shipped anywhere around the globe, rapidly installed, assembled, and qualified at the client site. And at GCON, we've executed pod projects both within the U.S. and globally for a broad range of manufacturing processes and applications, including those shown on the screen. Our company really encourages client feedback in order to improve our designs and technology. We pay very close attention to the voice of the customer, as well as to guidance from industry organizations and the regulators to consistently ensure that our products, goals, and objectives are well aligned with the industry's needs. And what we've been seeing in industry today is as Dan and Jeff described earlier, is a real paradigm shift in manufacturing and logistics strategies of drug manufacturers. The industry landscape is really evolving, and new needs and drivers are really causing companies to rethink how they'll design and build their manufacturing facilities of the future. And, you know, there's three primary drivers that we're seeing. The first is the growing need for drug manufacturing capacity. Continuous population growth in combination with an aging population is increasing the demand for drug products. The great news is that people are living longer today, largely due to the drugs and treatments our industry provides. There's also a rising middle class in many emerging nations who can now afford and are demanding improved health care and access to drug products. And many of the governments of these nations are requiring that drugs be manufactured either partially or completely within their borders. Many of the new drugs being developed today are for targeted therapies and personalized medicine. In the case of autologous treatments, each batch is patient-specific and uses the patient's own cells to manufacture the drug therapy. In these cases, traditional manufacturing and distribution models may not work efficiently to get the right drugs to the right patients at the right times. And finally, there's also an urgent need to address the drug shortage issues, which often are a result of outdated and non-compliant manufacturing facilities. Next is speed, which is really being driven by the need to reduce the time it takes to design, build, and qualify cGMP manufacturing facilities. Companies can no longer afford to wait 4 to 5 years to complete a facility construction project. We've also witnessed over the past years the urgent need to be able to more rapidly respond to epidemic and pandemic events around the globe, such as the Ebola and swine flu crises. And shorter facility project timelines can really, help bring those drug products to clinic, to market, or to a new geography much quicker, as well as allow manufacturers to delay their capital investment in order to reduce their risk. Okay, and the third key driver is the need for agility and flexibility in facility design. And flexibility can mean different things to different manufacturers. Many of the new facilities being designed need to be able to accommodate multiple product processes and therefore require the appropriate level of segregation for different operations and product classes. The ability to emissions without significant impact to existing operations can be critical as well. And we're also seeing more often the need to develop modular facility platforms that can be replicated or cloned at multiple locations around the world in order to facilitate more localized manufacturing capability. And finally, the ability to relocate or redeploy manufacturing capability through the use of modular and mobile facility designs is really critical to some manufacturers in order to meet their future strategies. And this need for capacity, speed, and flexibility is starting to shift many drug production strategies from the traditional large centralized manufacturing sites to smaller footprint decentralized sites that can be cloned and installed around the world. And there can really be significant time and cost savings recognized when you follow this type of cloning strategy once that first facility is designed, built, and qualified. Okay, and when we look at these industry drivers, we quickly realize that the traditional facility construction models that have worked historically for drug manufacturing will not necessarily meet the future needs. So we believe large centralized, purpose-built, and capital-intensive facilities will become less prevalent and start to give way to smaller footprint, modular, prefabricated, turnkey facility designs. Okay, and I think everybody agrees that there will continue to be a need for traditional facility construction. However, we are already beginning to see a shift within the industry towards these turnkey facility designs. Okay, and more, these turnkey facility solutions, which incorporate prefabricated and pre-engineered structures, are really being recognized for the value and benefits they can bring, and they're well aligned with industry's growing demand for capacity, speed, and flexibility. And turnkey facility concepts are not new to industry and in fact have been implemented by various drug manufacturers around the world over the past 3 decades. So when manufacturers evaluate the benefits of turnkey solutions, the ability to control and reduce project timelines is often one of the most important factors. Turnkey facility construction benefits from parallel fabrication activities, which allow both the building, shell, and clean rooms to be built concurrently rather than sequentially. And then both are rapidly installed and assembled at the project site. Because most of the majority of the fabrication is taking place in a factory rather than at the site, many of the on-site disturbances and delays experienced during a traditional construction project, such as weather, logistics, and labor issues, can be avoided. Prefabricated clean rooms can also be assembled and tested in the factory, allowing for early detection and correction of issues before shipping, therefore reducing the probability of startup and operational issues after delivery to the project site. And there's actually been both real projects and case studies which have demonstrated that turnkey facilities can reduce a facility construction schedule to 50 to 75% of the time required for a traditional stick-built construction project. Okay, additional benefits are tied to the fact that most of the fabrication occurs off-site, including reducing the complexity and number of activities that the client needs to manage locally during the project. The complexity and risk is in effect transferred from the site to the factory and helps to reduce the on-site liability as well as the impact to other operations that may be going on at the site or in close proximity. Directly related to this is the additional laydown area that's typically required for the storage and staging of materials, equipment, and activities during a traditional construction project. And this laydown area can often take up to an additional 50% of the actual building footprint and is often required for 1 to 2 years. For a turnkey facility, the staging areas are only required for a short duration while the prefabricated facility is being installed and assembled. And in certain cases, there are certain locations around the globe where there could be a lack of or shortage of skilled labor experienced in constructing CGMP clean rooms and facilities. And in these cases, a prefabricated or pre-engineered facility solution might be the only viable option. So a couple of key examples, Pharmadual, which originated in Sweden back in 1986. They launched their company based on a novel approach for constructing buildings with prefabricated modular containers, which they built in their factory. This company probably has the longest history in our industry for providing turnkey facility solutions. Well-controlled project timelines were their hallmark. But like traditional facilities, they were typically purpose-built and not easily modified or flexible to adapt to changing market needs. The original company has since been sold off, but their container-based concept does continue to be utilized in industry. In fact, GE has taken the container-based facility model and evolved it into their current QBio facility concept. And for QBio, GE exclusively integrates their single-use manufacturing equipment and process platform within prefabricated containers in order to provide a greenfield facility solution for their clients. And the need and application of turnkey facility solutions can really vary by the manufacturer's expansion requirements for each project. In the case of brownfield projects where there's already an existing facility, there's two potential scenarios. The first being a retrofit of an area within the existing building footprint. In this case, a turnkey clean room would be required, but not a new building. The second brownfield scenario would be expansion of an existing building and would require both a new building structure along with integrated clean rooms. And then finally, there's the Greenfield project, where there's no existing structure and the entire facility needs to be built from the ground up. You know, and with many drug manufacturers, their short-term and long-term capacity needs really need to be considered in a facility design, and there can often be considerable uncertainty in their future capacity needs, which now today really requires a flexible facility design that can adapt as needed in response to changes in market demand. Now this slide is going to depict the potential expansion phases that a drug manufacturer may need to plan for when designing a new facility. Phase 1 would be an initial building and cleanroom construction to support their short-term capacity needs. Phase 2 would be to add manufacturing cleanroom space in order to add additional capacity or additional unit operations. Phase 3 would be the addition of both a new building and manufacturing cleanroom connected to the existing building, which would be able to provide additional capability for a new drug product. And finally, phase 4, if needed, could be to relocate or redeploy the cleanroom pods to a different location in order to transfer capacity or downsize. So having a flexible facility design that can provide for all these potential future phases, you know, can provide tremendous value when a company's designing a new facility for their future. And, you know, the Pcmm Consortium is really a great case study for a facility of the future concept, which has been implemented by Pfizer and is currently demonstrating that, you know, capacity, speed, and flexibility can be realized, you know, in a facility design through innovation and the effective collaboration with the right set of partners. Okay, so Pcmn, which stands for Portable Continuous Miniature Modular, is a consortium that was initiated between Pfizer, GIA, and GCON in 2013 with the vision of transforming the way oral solid dosage forms are manufactured for industry. And Pcmn brought together the expertise of the 3 primary collaborators as well as an extended support team in order to integrate all aspects of manufacturing capability within a oral solid dosage facility platform design. And then once the design was completed, the key objective was to move forward with fabricating a prototype Pcmn facility for the Pfizer Groton site. You know, and the concept that the Pcmn team developed was based on a prefabricated modular facility design that allowed both the clean room pods and process equipment to be constructed off-site at the respective GIA and GCON factories, and then shipped to the Pfizer site and rapidly installed and assembled into an existing warehouse that had been refurbished to accommodate the Pcmn installation. The GIA continuous process train, as Dan and Jeff described earlier, allows the Pcmn facility to be used for process development, clinical manufacturing, as well as commercial scale manufacturing, all on the same equipment, which really, when you think about it, provides unmatched capability and flexibility in its design. Okay, one of the critical goals for the project was to install the pod facility in less than a week, and if needed in the future, to be able to go in, disassemble, and prepare that Pcmn facility for relocation to a different Pfizer site. And during his presentation earlier, Dan showed a number of photos which captured the installation of the Pcmn pods and GIA equipment at the Pfizer Groton site. And if, for those who are interested, there's actually a time-lapse video of the Pcmn installation that's available for viewing on the GCON website. Okay, and the PCMM facility has been in operation in Groton for the past few years, being used for both development and clinical manufacturing activities. It's currently being readied for future commercial production. And the existing installation, as installed, has the capability for producing uncoated tablets. And there is a plan in place for adding additional tablet coating capability in the future. Okay, and this will actually entail the design and fabrication of a new pod, which will be integrated with GIA's Consigma continuous film coating equipment, which will then be installed and connected to the existing PCMM installation in Groton. Also, in late 2015, the Pcmm Consortium was expanded to include GSK, and soon after, the team initiated a design effort for the second generation PCMM design. And the vision for the second generation PCMM was really to leverage both Pfizer and GSK's combined expertise in continuous manufacturing in order to improve upon the original PCMM prototype design. And this would be accomplished by integrating additional functionality and capability, optimizing the process and facility design based on the lessons learned from the original installation in Groton, and by gaining consensus between both Pfizer and GSK on the requirements for an OSD continuous manufacturing platform for the pharmaceutical industry. And the second generation design adds functionality and capability that was not in the original prototype design, including both tablet coating and encapsulation. Material handling capability was improved and includes now a dedicated API dispensing area with downflow booth and isolators for handling up to OEB4 actives. The facility will also be able to accommodate multiple container formats, including drums, IBCs, FIBCs. Larger wash areas and clean storage space was also integrated into the new design based on the lessons learned from the Pfizer Groton operations team. And the second generation design also allows for flexibility by providing 4 different facility configurations. And the base pod facility configuration shown here includes both direct compression, tableting, and coating capability, as well as all of the required support functions and airlocks. By adding 1 or 2 bolt-on pods, either during initial installation or in the future, we can also provide wet granulation and or encapsulation capability. So the second generation designs really does provide a flexible and configurable facility platform that can be adjusted as needed based on the local manufacturing site requirements. So in summary, we are really seeing that the evolving needs and drivers in industry are starting to shift drug manufacturing and logistics strategies. We strongly believe that prefabricated turnkey facility designs will become more prevalent, and we are starting to see them replace traditional construction for a number of future facility projects. And finally, the Pfizer and Pcmm Consortium it's really a great case study for this type of future facility concept, and we look forward to more of these facilities of the future going forward. So thank you everybody for your attention today, and I'll hand it back to Shri to facilitate the next portion of the webinar.
Thank you very much, Dennis. So at this point, I would like to begin the question and answer session. Just as a reminder to our audience, if you've got any questions for any of our presenters, please click on the questions tab and send them through to us, and I'll ask our presenters. So the first question we have is, I think this one's directed at Jeff and Dan, but Dennis, feel free if you'd like to add anything to it. Do you think the concept of modular manufacturing and continuous processing is better aligned for lower volume drugs or higher volume drugs?
Sure, I'll take that one. This is Dan. So I think the answer is yes. I think in the case of high volume products, these small scale continuous facilities through clonability are able to address the volume needs for high volume manufacture. I'll touch on a couple points. The one that Jeff brought up, through clonability, organizations can benefit from equipment continuity and expertise that develops by standardization and platform technologies. And so having clone-based facilities located throughout the world, supply the world's market for high volume components, these systems can be managed by a centralized technical hub where process troubleshooting and support can be efficiently deployed to support these globally distributed pieces of equipment. Naturally, due to the size of these equipment and facility designs, they are very well suited for lower volume precision medicines with lower throughputs, highly proportionate to the demand for these particular medicines.
Thank you very much, Dan. So the next question, this one's for Dennis, but again, feel free to add anything if you'd like, Dan and Jeff. Is a pod facility qualified or validated after it is installed?
That's a great question, Sri. Thank you. So for every pod that's designed built in the GCON factory, a full factory acceptance test is executed prior to shipment. Once the pods are installed and assembled on site, we'll go through a full site acceptance test, which includes a full test and balance certification of HEPA filters, smoke studies, or everything you would typically expect to see in a clean room qualification. And some of our clients leverage both the SAT protocol that we execute as well as the engineering turnover package that we provide to minimize their validation efforts. And in some cases, clients also prefer that we do go in and execute an installation and operational qualification as well for the pods, which we also have the capability of doing. So we have flexibility in the level of qualification that we can provide for a pod-based facility.
Great. Dennis and Jeff, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that at all.
I'll just come back to the concept of clonability. As a singular design for both equipment, processing equipment, and pod-based facilities emerge, these platforms and the design package associated with them or the qualification package associated with them can be reused. The SOPs that are developed by one site for a platform-based system can be copied or reused by subsequent sites where these clones of these installations emerge. And there's great efficiencies that come about through the embrace of platform-based systems. Whereas in today's environment, many of our designs are one-offs. So a major effort goes into design a singular building, and that design is only appropriate for that particular site in that particular location of the world. Similarly, SOPs, qualification documents, also have a limited scope related to that singular installation.
Great, thanks very much. Just as a reminder to our audience, if you'd like any questions for our presenters, then please send them through to us via the questions tab. I think the next question is similar to what you've answered already, but I'll ask anyway. Do you envision a manufacturing space where a pod that makes the drug substance would be located next to the pod that makes the drug product?
Yeah, so this is Jeff. I can take a crack at that one. So in the example I showed with in the facility with the many multiple pods lined up, that is certainly a possibility, and you can imagine the benefits of that of rapidly responding to a market need by quickly making the drug substance and following that almost immediately with making the drug product, and that removes the need to have concerns about the stability or shipping or import costs of the drug substance from perhaps another facility outside of a country. So that that's one of the possibilities with this approach.
Yeah, and from the GCON perspective, we've seen and worked with clients on a number of different concepts, some being just dedicated drug substance or dedicated drug product facilities, but in many cases we are seeing clients that want to develop future facilities that incorporate both the bulk drug substance and drug product manufacturing all within the same building.
Great, thank you very much. The next question is from an audience member named Andy Craze. His question is, what percentage of drug manufacturing globally do you see utilizing these strategies and technologies by 2022? Do you see this impacting only new processes or also in-market legacy processes?
So this is Dan. Let me try and take a crack at it. So I think the major change that is currently in place within the pharma industry is that transition from batch-based processing to continuous processing. And I think through the intensification of the process, where our facility and processing equipment infrastructure is becoming smaller, it opens the possibility up to these concepts of portability and modularity. I think those elements are still going to be secondary to this initial wave, this initial transformation wave of moving from batch-based process to continuous process. And so I think what you'll see is we're on the leading edge of maybe this change, and the full complete picture of portable, modular, highly flexible facilities will something that has the potential to roll out over longer time horizons. In terms of applying these technologies to new processes or in-market legacy processes, I think you'll find that companies are pursuing both of those strategies. Companies such as Vertex, Pfizer, and I believe Lilly have been applying continuous processing to new products. To provide just a few examples, companies like Janssen have applied their new technology to an inline product. And so I think you'll see a mix of approaches seeking to deploy this technology to both their marketed products and their new products coming through their pipelines.
Okay, great. Does anybody else have anything to add to that one? Oh, good. The next question seems to be our final question. This one's directed at Dennis. What happens if there is a client location that does not have an existing infrastructure or expertise for installing a Pcmn type facility?
Oh, that's another good question. So I think, to maybe to build upon what Dan described earlier when we talk about, taking a cloned facility approach to future manufacturing capability. Once we have that first facility constructed and validated, that really becomes the center of excellence, the knowledge center. So when you start to plan for future facilities at other parts of the world, you could envision, as Dan said, you can leverage that design, you can leverage the protocols, you can leverage the procedures that have already been developed, for that knowledge center, that center of excellence. So once that decision's made to build a facility or more facilities at other locations, the drug manufacturing could go out and start to hire employees for the new facility and bring them to that center of excellence and start to train them, in that facility on that equipment with those procedures and protocols, because it is going to be the same equipment in the same clean room in the same type of facility. So you can really start to, even if you don't have local expertise, you can start to hire people and bring them to the center of excellence to train them. So once that new facility is built and up and running, you already have a core employee base that has been trained and can rapidly get that new facility started up and operational. So, and as Dan explained earlier, with today's technology, from a process automation standpoint, you can provide technical support from anywhere in the world to remote locations. So, we're really starting to see a lot of those aspects be important for these facilities of the future.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. That's all the questions we have today. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our presenters, Daniel Blackwood, Jeffrey Moriarty, and Dennis Powers, for sharing their knowledge with us. Audiences can view this webinar on demand by visiting biopharma-asia.com/webinars. Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.